air leakage through the window.
It certainly wasn't.
Okay, I'll call this meeting to order of the Bennington Select Board, Monday, March 25th, 2013, here at Bennington Firehouse. Can I ask you to rise, and Jason, seeing on your last meeting, will you please lead us in the Pledge of Allegiance?
Pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you. First order of business are the minutes from March 11th.
I'll move to be accepted as printed.
Okay. I have a motion and a second. Any discussion on the minutes for Monday, March 11th? If not, all in favor? And that's 6. All abstain? 1. Next order of business are the warrants, and we'll start with you, Chris.
No, nothing tonight, thanks.
Justin?
I have nothing, Joe.
Jimmy?
No, sir.
Jason? No. Greg? Sharon?
Nope, they did good this time.
Have we paid all our bills, Stuart?
Pardon me?
Have we paid all our bills?
Yeah, we paid the bills.
Okay.
Thank you, Sharon, for that compliment.
You're welcome.
I'll pass it on to the staff.
Are there any citizens out there who would like to address the Select Board and the people of Bennington? Come on up, Chief. For everybody's benefit, will you please state your name?
Sit right there. My name, for the good of the only, my name is Jack Prentice. Born and raised here in Bennington, and I do a lot of with youth sports and with the community as far as, fire department, as you all know. I'm here tonight to trying to get the Bennington Men's Softball League back into town. The Arlington League is no longer having a league this year, and White Creek is up in the air. There's a maybe. And 4 or 5 years ago, when this league stopped running, it was because everybody else around us was having leagues like White Creek and Arlington, and their fees were a lot cheaper. The reason for that being there wasn't any insurance over there, and the town made us have insurance. So what I'm here for is to see if there's a way we can do a waiver of some sort, and so we don't have to carry insurance, so I can try to lower the entry fee and get teams to come back here to play instead of going elsewhere. And I've seen in your policies that it would be $500 for a league for the use the fields with lights, because it obviously would be, times would be 6, 7, and 8 o'clock games. I don't have a problem with that fee, but the insurance, it kills us. 5 years ago when the league folded, it was $750 or $800 to get in the league. And nowadays, I mean, we all know with the economy, sponsors just ain't gonna fork out $800. So what I'm looking for is if I can get everybody that comes in the league to sign a waiver so we don't have to carry insurance.
Stuart, what's the issue on insurance?
The waiver truly isn't worth the paper it's printed on. If somebody gets injured on the field, participating in a league, that responsibility is going to fall to the town, which is why we began requiring insurance years ago. It used to be the ASA had a policy that covered all teams that were competing in ASA softball. I don't know whether that's the case anymore, Chad, or not.
We would be ASA. I don't believe 5 years ago, I don't know if there was such a thing.
Well, I played softball more than 5 years ago.
I was on the board. I was the vice president of the league when it did kind of fold and go away. But I know we always just went and got our own insurance. Maybe ASA does have one, I'm not sure. I could look into that.
They used to. If you were an ASA-sanctioned league, they had an insurance policy that the league could buy that would cover all of the teams participating. Because
I know it's only a $25 fee to be sanctioned with ASA to go play in any certified national or state tournament. I can't imagine the $25 would cover any. I mean, I'm sure they're insured as a corporation because ASA is huge, but.
Chad, what did you say the fees were for insurance for per team per year?
It's not the insurance in general. It was the overall entry fee to the league, which covers the insurance, balls, umpiring, that kind of stuff. Was around $750, $800 5 years ago.
And the insurance was additional to that?
No, it was in part of it, but I mean, I think the insurance was somewhere around $3,000 at 5 years ago.
So to have a team in the league with insurance was around $800.
right around 800
And
bucks.
to have a team in the league without the insurance piece you're talking about?
I'm not sure, that's where I'm looking to, I mean, I know it was around 3 grand 5 years ago. I'm hoping if I could cut 150 or 150 bucks off an entry fee, because I know they're only charging 600 over in the creek. Last year they were, so I don't know how much I could bring that down.
What are our fees to use the field, Stuart?
For a league with lights, it's 500.
Yeah, for the
Because we would
lights.
need the lights, because we would definitely play probably 8 o'clock games. That's what it used to be, was a 6, 7, and 8 o'clock game.
That's for the
And
season.
that's for the season.
Yes.
How many people are on a team?
10 play at one time, but most teams have 12 or 15 guys.
So if there's 12, you're trying to cut it from 800 to what?
Try to at least get it to 6 or 650 was what I'd
Okay, so if
like
you
to
take
do.
12 people, you're trying to save 200 a team. That's about $16 a player. And that's the difference between having insurance or not.
Mhm.
For how many weeks is a season?
Probably middle of end of May to July. So 10 weeks
Barely
probably.
over $1 a week. And the reason I ask those questions is I think Stu's right. I think the waiver probably is a non-starter. I mean, I think you gotta have insurance. And the cost is really, per player, barely $1 a week for that insurance. And it's something I think the town should have myself.
Could I ask why there's other organizations that use that facility and sign waivers and don't have insurance?
Stu?
I don't know that there are.
The Horseshoe Club does.
Well, the Horseshoe Club has an agreement to use their facility that they constructed, they maintained.
It's
As
still
far as
town
I know,
property.
they carry the insurance for the operation of their pits there.
Why do they sign a waiver?
I don't know.
Who do they sign it with?
I just, from somebody I know that plays the horseshoes and runs the horseshoe
Yeah.
club, says they sign a waiver, not that they don't have to have insurance to play horseshoes.
Let me
But I'm
answer-
just curious because it's town property.
Let
that's all.
me, the insurance to me is non-negotiable, we've got to have the insurance, but Stuart, what would happen as a temporary, because of the economy, we dropped the, let's say, the fee by $100, what is it, 500 now for the league?
Yeah, that's for use of the softball field, and I don't know, I'm not that familiar with all the fees. This is a policy that was been
Right.
developed by staff to try to cover our
I
expenses.
remember when we did it, yeah, a few years back.
So I don't know. But if the fee is the issue, I've been approached by other parents and coaches about the implementation of the new fee schedule being too much at this time. And I've asked them to go back to their boards and come back to me and talk to me about what is fair, what they can afford, and they haven't gotten back to me yet, so.
I guess where I'm coming from is that, as I said, the insurance is non-negotiable, and I want the electricity costs covered by the league, whatever it is, but if the board is willing, I'd like Stuart to go back to the staff, look at it one more time, see as a temporary basis, while this economy is here, that we could lower the fee by some amount. I thought, for some reason, $500 sticks in my mind that we charged for the,
It is, it's 500 with
500.
lights.
That's for the
250 with-
season, for the entire
For a
league?
season league in the policy, it's 500 with lights, 250 without lights, for a league, for a
Okay.
season.
From the
Right.
insurance standpoint, is there a rider for every group that uses the field? I mean, if I go up there with a couple of friends and throw balls around,
No.
what's the difference between that and having a league there from the?
We look to the organizations that are sponsoring. They tend to sign up for these fields, they operate tournaments, they do a whole host of things. And because there are so many of them, and if you're up there throwing a ball around with a couple of guys and you miss the ball and it hits you in the head, you're not going to look to the town for your costs for medical bills. We have experienced in the past people who were injured playing organized sports who turn and look to the owner of the field for coverage. And that's happened a long time ago, but I know that the schools require insurance.
I remember the
We
basketball
require
season.
insurance. I mean, it's the only way to protect the community from a number of,
But the coverage
Claim.
is there for that already. I mean, we don't cover individual leagues
No, we don't cover
We
individual
have,
leagues.
we have the coverage and
Yeah, the community can use the,
organizations to offset the cost because of, that's where the risk is.
Right.
In the organization. Okay, that's what I was looking for. Thank
Other board members, mind?
Yeah,
What
can I
was
just
Sharon?
ask Chad, when you had the insurance before, was it through the organization that you joined, or was it a policy that you?
It was a
guys all
policy
got on
that,
your own?
that the board went and looked into and got, and we paid out ourselves. It wasn't through ASA.
So.
I don't remember off the top, it's been 5 years and I wasn't the treasurer, so I don't know where it came from. I mean, I can find it, I can get it.
So maybe if we ask Stu to do what we've asked him to do and ask you to go back and see what the insurance policy would cost you through the organization. It may be cheaper because they're such a big organization, they may be able to get it for you cheaper. And then come back and talk about it again.
So aside from the electricity, what are the expenses that we have to cover?
we mow the field. We prep the field. It used to be back in the day that a lot of the leagues would come in and, in the springtime and work the fields, clean them up, get them leveled and everything. Even during my time, that was dropping off dramatically. We were seeing fewer and fewer people showing up for the work parties. So the town takes that on, and, you know, we have to have the fields safe and ready for play.
Does board concur, we'll let Stuart go back and look at what the fee schedule, see if we can lower the fee schedule, and Chad, you're gonna find out what the insurance
Yep.
is?
Yeah, I can do that.
Can we put this on the agenda for the next meeting?
Sure.
And give us plenty of time, Chad, to get the teams,
Yep.
get you advertising on it. I'd like to see the teams all come back to Bennington myself.
Yeah, you know, when I started playing,
And,
when I was 18,
yeah.
there was 4 leagues, 4 divisions, and 40 teams here.
So the board concur, we'll table this till, for 2 weeks, we'll get some more information?
Yep.
Any objections to that?
I
Okay,
just
fine.
have one more quick thing
Yeah.
on field maintenance. I mean, there's, even back when we had the league, because I was served on that board for many years prior to it going under, or stopping because other leagues were going cheaper, we always did a lot of the work up there, even the mowing part, because the league ended up buying their own mower because it was hardly ever getting done. I mean, not to blame on you, Stu, or anybody, but I'm just saying, we did a lot of it. We mowed it, we raked it, because we had a York rake with the mower and a roller. So we used to rake it, roll it, and everything, and it wasn't getting done.
Okay.
Well, it's
So we
getting
took
done
care of a
now.
lot of that. Just-
getting done now.
Just to keep that in, you know, in the back of your minds, that's all.
What we'll do is we'll lay out what your responsibility as league gonna be, what towns will be, and we'll roll out what the fee schedule is if we can make an adjustment, okay?
All right, thank you.
Okay. Any other citizens?
Yeah, we're on the same issue.
Okay, you heard our answer. I'm not sure you're gonna hear a different answer.
Is it here? Yeah. My name is Danielle Simmons. I'm with Young Women's Softball here in town. Along the same issues, and then just to go a little further on what, I'm sorry, Chad said, when you say maintenance of the fields. A lot of the time, as far as maintenance of the fields, and we had many, many issues at the rec center last year, where I would show up to practice, 6 o'clock. I'm bringing my own rake, I'm bringing my own shovel, along with the other, we're digging out our own holes for the bases. Couldn't find second base the entire season last year. Brought these things to the rec center, and it was kind of like, yep, okay, nothing was done. We just did it ourselves. We lined the fields ourselves. There's no equipment to line the field for a softball game. We were told there's no key at the rec center to open the maintenance shed. So we couldn't even use a rake or a shovel at the rec center that they had. When I spoke to them this time, I was told maintenance crew is gone at 2. I'm like, okay, no problem. If it rains, no. Can we get into the maintenance? We'll rake it. We don't have an issue with that. Well, no, we don't have a key. Okay, well, are the bases going to at least be in place this season so we can use them at the rec center? And I'm only speaking from my experience. I was there every Monday and Wednesday. We had games there Mondays and Wednesdays. And she's like, we don't have a key. Again, we don't have a key. I'm like, okay, can you leave rakes out for us? It's not that we're not willing to do it. It's that it's not being taken care of. So my question is, the fee is $250 to use one field. Last year, it was $200 to use any of the 3 fields. So I see that as a large increase, in my opinion. We're a nonprofit league. Every penny we have goes right back into equipment, uniforms, and the girls. We don't spend it on anything else. It goes right back into the league. So I understand what you're asking of us for $250. I guess I want to know, what do we get for $250? A field. $200, 3 fields, we'll deal with it. We had our own rakes, the tractor out there for our tournaments. We did raked them out so they were nice and level. I just don't understand what the increase of the fee is getting the league. What else? So just from our point of view, we've gone from $200 a season to use 3 fields to $750 a season for practices and $150 per field per tournament, which would cost us an additional $300. So we've gone from $200 to over $1,000. And I just don't understand, for over that $1,000, what additional, because I don't see us really getting anything now, are we getting? I took pictures of the second rec center field over at Willow Park to show you after a 30-minute rainstorm what it looks like. I don't know if you want to look at them or take them into consideration, but basically home plate's underwater. It's not usable after 30 minutes of rain. First base, there's puddles. Second base, there's puddles. Third base, there's puddles. The right side of the field where the bench, one bench is, you walk on it, you're sinking in. There's no drainage there. And I understand the condition of the field, but still no, that's dangerous for the girls to play on. The whole side that comes down from the hill is covered in weeds and stuff, which is understandable, it's a hill. But we had over a dozen cases of poison ivy and kids getting ticks just from getting a ball out of those weeds. I didn't know if there was some machine that the town has that can go down and just clear the weeds out for the season. Even
What are
if
you
it was once
talking
or
about
twice a
now? You're talking about using the fields at the rec center
Is it-
along with fields at?
Willow Park
Willow
and the rec center, yeah,
Okay.
yeah. Two total, I went from, we have 6 Bennington teams, 1 Arlington team and 1 Shaftesbury North Bennington team. We can use the Arlington field for free, the Shaftesbury field for free, and recently just been told we can possibly use the Vets field for free. And I'm not saying I want them for free.
What vets homes? What-
Possibly. It was just, we're asking, we're inquiring. It's not a definite. But Arlington and Shaftesbury, we were told definitely we can use the fields for no charge.
Just
And
for
they take care of
everybody's
the fields.
knowledge, the home is looking at a land use policy over
Okay.
there because we're getting a lot of requests.
That's fine.
And
That's okay.
you've been reading the newspapers, we don't have a lot of money over there.
Yeah, that's fine.
Yeah, one of our biggest concerns is we are a nonprofit. It's all Bennington children who are playing in this league, girls from the ages of 7 to 13. We've already collected our fees, for the year, and now we're looking at possibly not having enough funds to get these girls, the equipment and stuff they need, so we have to put it in the fields for them to have practices.
What were your total town fees for last year to use all the fields?
All
to-
3 fields, $200
For the entire year, that was,
for the season.
okay, and you said you paid more for tournaments?
We didn't pay anything for tournaments.
Okay.
Nope.
So you had a $200 cost last year?
Yeah.
And you're saying the cost has now jumped to?
If we were to take 3 fields in town,
Which we took last year. This year, we can't afford
You
to.
need the 3 fields for your
Yeah, 'cause
space?
we have 6
I'm
teams plus.
I'm asking questions.
No, that's fine.
fine.
Yep.
Because I don't understand what your cost has jumped to what then? If
It's
you-
jumped to $200 per field, which is $600 plus a tournament, about $900, $1,000.
Okay.
We have 6 Bennington teams with anywhere from 10 to 13 girls per team, ranging in the ages from, oh, no, wait, hang on. I didn't count the little girls. We have 9 teams, ranging from 10 to 13 girls per team. And then 2 additional teams, but they're Arlington and Shaftesbury, so.
What does it cost a girl in Bennington to play in your league?
We only charge $35.
And that includes a shirt, shorts, and socks, because we try to keep it so everybody can afford to do it.
Sure, sure.
And then we provide all of their equipment, except for a glove.
They have to do a glove and a mouth guard, obviously, security, safety reasons.
But we provide everything else.
But
for
catcher's
them.
equipment, bats, we have that, so the girls don't have to buy it. That's optional on their side.
And the increase in our fees for fields is going to force us next year to increase our fees for kids to play. And we don't really want to do that. We want to try to keep it reasonable so every kid can play. We have a max, if you have 5 or 6 girls, you only pay $75, I think is our
I
max.
think over 3 girls, we do a max of $75.
Okay.
So if it's, a family has 3 girls, they only pay $75.
Trying to keep it reasonable for,
We try to keep it so that everybody can play, There are the rare occasions some people can't pay, and, we look at each individual girl.
what are your other expenses?
Insurance,
Insurance, which is $800 a year. The fields, the uniforms themselves, socks, shorts, and shirts. The shirts just themselves are around, I think, $2,000. The shorts and socks, I don't know,
they were like $800.
$800. We
And then-
provide face masks, which have to be replaced every year for safety of the girls. Well, not every year, but when they need to be replaced. Those are $35 a piece, 5 per team.
Bats.
You know,
Catcher's gear,
we at least have
helmets.
2 bats, and then you have catcher's equipment itself. If you get a whole catcher's set, you're looking at around $200.
So are your expenses paid by membership, or do you do fundraisers also?
We do membership, we do a fundraiser. We do a cash calendar to try to offset some of the costs for the girls, so they don't have to pay as much. But just the one usually fundraiser.
Well, how did our fees go from what they would have paid as $200 upwards to $1,000 in a year?
It was a recommendation of the staff at the rec center and the buildings and grounds folks that this is the cost that we would need to, in order to maintain the fields to a higher standard than what you see here. I have talked with my folks about the drainage on that particular field and the hillside that should be mowed and kept back. But if we're going to be doing that and providing more services, because I did get the complaints last year about the field at the rec center, then we need to be able to cover those costs.
And we asked, you know, when we went to sign up for the field, you know, the rec center, what we were gonna get for that, and we were told that we had to line our own fields, we had to buy our own machine to do it, we had to buy our own line, we had to rake our own fields. We were basically told when we forked over the money for the fields that we weren't getting anything additional than what we got last year.
Except better maintained fields.
We were told we had to maintain them, like we did before. I mean, because at our tournaments, we would show up with tractors, we would rake the fields, we would line the fields. Never once last year were they ever lined or raked for any of our games.
I agree. We had problems last year, and I took those complaints seriously, asked my staff to get more involved in the preparation of the fields. I believe one of the parents, Brian Billard, is he part of your group?
Yes.
He approached me about the fee, and I told him to get back to his board and let me know what they thought they could afford. And I haven't heard from him, so I'm assuming you folks haven't met as a board.
We just did.
Just did, but it was mostly trying to get everything organized to get started, sort of thing.
Well, I think the board's asked me to go back and take a look at the fees. We don't have line striping equipment, but certainly the fields should be ready for play, and you should be able to have access to the tools that you need to maintain.
No, I'm just saying if we were able to get the equipment, somehow the line fields, could we put that in the maintenance shed if we got the machine to line them? I guess would be the question, you know?
My question would be, I don't see why not, but
Okay. It's just, we don't have any place to put it if we
Right.
were to somehow have the
Right.
money for it.
not something you want to carry around in your trunk.
No.
Why don't we carry that stuff? If we have all these, fields, why don't we have the proper equipment?
Simply because we've never gone out to purchase it. It's always been, that's a maintenance that the leagues have always provided.
I mean, I guess I just think if we're gonna start charging this higher rate, we should probably be taking care of the field
Yeah.
completely. If we're gonna have it, if we had the fields, we obviously have to maintain them. But we don't wanna price it out as such where people that wanna use them no longer can.
Well, let's define to maintain. I don't, I'm not gonna hire another person to go out there and line,
Sure.
when you have this many teams, make sure the ball fields are.
No,
Every league
absolutely
I've ever
not.
played
You
on,
know,
that because that's the responsibility of the league.
Right.
We're not having an issue with lining the fields. We'll do it. The problem is there's no equipment to line the fields.
Maintaining is cutting the grass, making sure that the drainage is taken care of, those kind of things. I
It doesn't
agree
seem
with.
that it is, has been, no.
Well,
Right.
they had a problem at Willow, I understand. Okay. So I think what we've asked Stuart to do, and if you want to come back 2 weeks from there, what I want to hear is, what I like to hear in 2 weeks from now, Stuart, is what the recommendation fee is going to be, what are the leagues going to get for that fee, and then Chad, where are you? You're going to get us some information on the cost of insurance so we can weigh both sides when we make a decision. But I think it's our obligation, the board, to make an early decision because we're getting ready to crank up with these leagues. And if Chad's correct, which I'm sure he is that we're competing against other towns as far as getting these people back into town. I don't know how you feel, but I sure would like to get them in town.
Chad, did you have another question?
For a lot of us.
At one time, there used to be a line machine up in the bunker at Upper Willow.
Yeah,
There used to be a line machine in there. There's bags and bags of lime in that bunker still, a couple rakes, and some squeegees. But as far as lining machine, I don't know where that went to. There used to be one in there forever, as long as I can remember.
Right.
And I know they line the field down over the hill for football. Now, I don't know if Maya owns one, and it's theirs and they do it. I'm sure somebody from Maya football lines it, but I don't know whose equipment they're using to line the field.
I'm sure American Legion bought that one.
Probably, but I know their field gets lined,
Yeah,
just throwing that out there.
right. Okay, and anything else you want to add, young ladies?
Just, I mean, is everybody being charged this fee? Soccer, anybody who uses the fields, everyone's being charged $250? I guess is our
Yes.
question? Okay.
Yeah.
Baseball, anybody who comes over? Okay. That was all. Thank you.
Okay, we'll address that, bring it up at the next meeting, put it on the agenda. Thanks, ladies.
Thanks.
Steve, you might want to get in touch with Brian too, just to see if you can determine what, what you feel is comfortable for
Well,
everybody,
thank you.
okay?
Any other citizens out there who'd like to address the board? Okay, if not, we'll move on to the land use policy change. Stu, are you going to talk to that, or Dan going to talk to that?
Well, I think Dan he's the one that's made the suggested changes, which are underlined, and you see the striking.
Right.
We think we've addressed the concerns that were raised at the board level the last time we discussed this, and we're hopeful that it's ready for adoption.
Okay, who wants to talk about this? Justin, you had some concerns about the last one?
Yeah, I've got some concerns about it. I guess first off, I just don't really think I do not see where this policy really accomplishes anything. If we have the authority right now to exercise what this policy seems to illustrate that we have the authority to do, I don't really see a need to act on it. Aside from that, I think there is a few things in here. There's a couple things specifically as I look through it again that I would definitely get rid of. But I think it really, in some cases, it restricts the discretion of this board to try and move forward with some zoning issues, no matter what they are or where they arise from. And also, I guess it just doesn't really, the original request made by Jason, which I mentioned last time, was to have a policy that would allow this board to grant a variance. It's came back that we can't do that. So I just don't think this necessarily meets the spirit of the motion that was made. I would ask the board actually just to not act on this. That would be my recommendation at this point. I just don't think it does anything to move the process forward for what we seem to have looked to do.
Any other board members want to address this? Greg?
What I see is basically just an explanation of what statute and the town plan spells out that we've, as a board have approved in the past. It's not gonna change statute, it's not gonna give us new powers or anything, but it does explain to someone who hasn't read the town plan or hasn't been involved in the whole discussion, what happens should something arise that, that we might wanna consider a change in. It does, we don't have the power for a variance, but we do have the power to initiate a zoning change, or in that, including something into a zoning list that doesn't already list there. We used the example before of like drive-throughs and things like that come through. People come up with new ideas that aren't named in a zoning regulation. If that happens, I think it's a good idea to let someone who's a potential investor know that there is an avenue, just because it's not on that list, that we can get it through. Now, clearly, if they sit down with Dan or somebody, they're going to be able to have that explained to them, but, it does give the information to somebody going forward.
Right.
Next year, change a board or something, that this is something, a simple explanation.
And I understand that, but if you look at a couple excerpts from this, and I'll point out exactly what I'm talking about in a second, I think it does make it more restrictive in certain areas. If you look at Section D, the zone change is necessary to advance a project that is not speculative in nature. My question would be, at whose discretion is that phrase decided under? And secondly, we can change a zone right now to something that is speculative in nature, any zone, anywhere. This is going to make it more restrictive, where now we have to have something very specific. And I don't think that was what we asked for. Well, what you asked for, you folks asked for when you asked for the policy.
I don't see that language where it would be, whether you see this confusion where it wouldn't be, where it would be speculative in nature or would not, because what we're asking for is anyone who comes forward to be very specific about what they want to put there. So then that clarifies.
You're right. That was under the idea of that we had a chance to offer a variance. We don't have that opportunity in this policy. The policy that was asked for was a policy to allow us to offer variance to zoning regulations. This creates some more restrictions, but it gives us no authority to offer variance whatsoever.
Well, I think in a variance, to me, what would accomplish that would be adding something to the list of allowed uses for the land. I mean, not a variance of, in the residential terms of being able to, put a new porch on or something, but to say to add, now approved in this zone, we could add that. And that's the way I understood the request.
Well, right now, we can do that, but now we have to meet litmus test A, B, C, D, and E.
Well, most of those exist in the town plan, as it's written, but the discretion would become from the 7-person board here, I mean, as any issue.
Other board members, Jason.
I've got a few questions, but before I ask, or comments, I should say, but Dan, could I ask you some questions? If you wouldn't mind stepping forward. Pretty much hit for the cycle. I think we've talked about this every month for 6 years, so I guess we can finish up. At least I can finish up. To Justin's point, because to his credit, I think he's right. I think I did use the word variance when I made that motion, and you explained a couple weeks later, or 3 weeks after that meeting, that we couldn't have variances. I'm not a planning expert, but explain, if you could, not to put you on the spot.
Sure.
How did you come to the conclusion that this board can't grant a variance?
Because a variance by state statute can only be granted by the quasi-judicial board known as Development Review Board. You folks have even more authority than granting a variance. You can change the zoning completely.
That's where I thought we were. I mean, we can change the zone, we can do.
You have more authority than granting a variance.
That's, okay, and that's
Because a variance is
where I
for a
thought you were going
single
with that.
specific issue before the Development Review Board. You guys, when you change zoning, you change it for everybody and everything.
On a specific project too, and not the area that we're changing.
Yep. Thank you, Dan. Now, the comment I was gonna make, since of what was my motion, and Joe seconded it, and I think it was 6-1. For 6 years, we have, let's talk about what it is. We're talking about the Johnson Controls property, we're talking about Ted Gladstone as developer, and we're talking about, in my opinion, his comments and some of his advocates' comments that he cannot do as a developer what other developers seem to be able to do, and that is proactively come to the board or come to the town through the board and say, look, Bennington, here's what you're zoned for today. Here's the concept I have. Part of what I need to get it from where I am today to what I can do tomorrow is to know that if I can do all these things, you will provide a change in the zoning. Without getting bogged down in the semantics, which is where I think Justin is going with this, is whether it's a variance, whether it's a change in the zone, the purpose of that motion was to set forth clearly, because as much as some people would say, I've been anti-development of that parcel, I could sit here if pressed and probably give you a dozen non-industrial uses that I would ardently advocate for in that parcel if they were spelled out properly ahead of time, so the town of Bennington knew exactly what it was giving up when it forfeited a valuable industrial property for a non-industrial use. Whether I use the word variance, whether it is a variance, whether it's a change in zoning, that's the essence and that's the spirit of what we talked about a few weeks ago, and that's what I've been talking about, quite frankly, for years. Now, I don't think this policy makes us shoehorn any change into boxes A, B, C, D, or E, or any combination thereof, because the preceding line to that says the criteria applied by the select board in its review of a requested zone change may include, without limitation, the following. It could be anything we want, and in fact, what we did in, I think, my recollection only, I can only speak to that, in sending Dan and Stu back to the drawing board on this particular paragraph, that being paragraph number 3, and what the board has before it titled revised draft, is we took out, if all of the following criteria are met, which I thought was, I agree with Justin, that was exceptionally
Tight.
confounding to try to work within there, because the whole point of my motion was to say, look, here's our idea of what we think is a town that is best zoned for, in my opinion, industrial. However, as I said before a moment ago, there are, and I'm not going to articulate them, but there are several projects that are non-industrial in nature that I can conceive of, that make sense in that parcel, that it would enhance Bennington, it could complement the whole. This is a policy, this is not an ordinance. The town plan, even though many people on this board seem to think the town plan is a constitutional document or a legal document, it is not, it is a plan. It can be changed, it is a guide. It is not something that is set in stone, it is something that we put forth every 5 years to say, and we have to do it to get certain grants and funds from the state of Vermont to boot. It's something that says this is just a guide, this is just something we're moving forward with. So to say that we have to deviate from the town plan, we can always deviate from the town plan. I do think this revised draft captures the spirit of what I was trying to accomplish, which was to set forth to be frank, Mr. Gladstone or any other developer who owns property in the town of Bennington, if they've got an idea that doesn't fit within the box that they're in for zoning where they own property, then come to us with an idea and we will give you a fair shake. We want to see what you've got. We want to see what you can do to complement the town of Bennington. But what we don't want to do, in my opinion, and should not do, in my opinion, is to say, we're just going to change it carte blanche without having any idea what you want to do with it, without any guarantees around that. There's a lot of, that happens all the time in the form of a permit, whether it's a state permit, a town permit. You get a permit to do something based on what it is you're proposing to do. I think this draft gives, I don't think it shoehorns the board into anything, and I do think it captures the spirit of what we talked about in the past.
Other board members? Stuart, help me with Robert's rules. We had a motion that you and the staff go back and clarify this issue. It was made by Jason, I believe, way back. The only thing we're working on tonight is approval of this draft, because you made the changes the last time, it's come back. So we must vote on the motion that was made originally, is that correct?
I think I withdrew the motion so they could go back.
Did you,
Yeah,
did you withdraw
I
it?
think
Okay, that's why- that's
Jason's
why I want
correct. I mean, we'd have to
clarification.
look at the minutes.
So then we do need a new motion tonight then,
I would say yes.
okay?
Can I ask a question? I had a question to Dan before we go there, Joe, when you're done. And, basically what I'm trying to do is just find something that works in the parcels that we have that are underutilized. And I won't get into that debate tonight, but 20 years is a long time to sit vacant, and that's all I'll say about that. But Dan, just a question for you. Number 2, the Planning Commission at its discretion may at any time consider requests for a zoning change that occur outside of the 5-year town plan process, and take whatever appropriate action it considers prudent, including, without limitation, taking no action or commencing the formal process to amend the land use regulation. My concern is with taking no action or commencing the formal process to amend the land use regulations. Does that mean if this board asks the Planning Commission to go back and look at any zoning, change of any zoning in this town, the Planning Commission does not have to act on that?
No, the select board can direct the planning commission to make a change, and
Okay.
the change has to go forward.
Well, that paragraph already exists in the policy.
That's the statute. The select board is the ultimate authority on land use ordinances, land use policy, and land use regulation. The planning commission, if you think about it, they're kind of like a committee that serves the select board. They don't have any adoption authority, they're advisory, and they serve at the pleasure of the select board and try to do the best they can to recommend policies and regulations that they believe will further the interests of the town.
I mean, I don't have a problem with this. The only changes are going to be the underlined ones. These first 2 paragraphs already exist
Right.
in the town plan. They're
Okay, so
already-
this is just, so really, I mean,
The only change we're making is what's underlined and what's deleted.
okay. So, I mean, really, this is kind of, I'm not saying this too, but it's all for naught in a way, I guess, right? Because it all exists
Well,
already, so.
I think it's more of a housekeeping issue. I think it goes to the spirit of what Jason wanted to accomplish. But I think somebody
Sharon,
can
if I
come
may
in.
just interject something on that.
Okay.
If I could. I don't think it's all for naught. We've spent 6 years more than 6 years. I've spent 6 years talking about this. It has been brought up in more than one meeting by more than one person that it's absolutely impossible to do what I've seen, look, I mean, if anybody here reads Vermont Magazine, there's a great article 2 issues back about the developer in Burlington that's developing the Walmart in St. Albans that is doing exactly what we're talking about right here. So to say it's impossible, and there's plenty of other examples we could conjure up, I'm sure, is in my opinion, just not true. What I'm trying to accomplish here with the motion that I made and the policy that I've advocated for is to simply say and send a signal to those people that want to develop property in a manner differently than what the zone certainly calls for now, is to say, our ears are open, our eyes are open, just tell us what you're looking about so we don't bet on the come and something goes in there that doesn't fit with what we're trying to do. Because as much as I can come up with ideas that certainly fit and would support that are non-industrial, I can certainly come up just as easily, if not easier, with many ideas that would hamper the overall growth of Bennington. Just because the land is vacant, you're right. That argument always seems to come back to 20 years is too long. I think that's a one-sided argument. I don't think it gives any consideration towards what has he done for the last 20 years to try to develop it. I don't recall any meeting here that he's really come to us and said, here's where I've been stymied. He just hasn't done that. So to say it's been 20 years, this is a bad policy, I just don't think that's a congruent argument.
I mean, I guess I just look at it, and you can look at that 2 ways. You can look at the fact that it's industrial right now.
Yeah.
You could probably pick 10 or 20 industrial aspects that wouldn't be good for Bennington, but this board would have no authority over it because nobody's asking for a change. So if you're not asking for a change, it's like, go ahead and run your bad project, but if you need to change something that already exists, you got to get our approval.
Well, I don't agree with that statement.
No, I don't agree with that
Well,
either.
how can you
It
not?
happened right in Pownell less than a year ago.
Right.
With the biomass. There was a zone for that. The people spoke up and it went through the DRB process. It went through all the
But this
appeal process.
policy doesn't have anything to affect with that. This is just
But
simply somebody wants-
that's policy now.
Well, I don't know. That's not how I see it.
And a few years back, when I first came back, if I recall, Stuart, you helped me out, they were going to put that gas plant down there in that area.
Yep.
And people spoke up, and it was going to be tall smokestacks. It was zoned that way.
It was on the Jard site that we now
Yeah.
control.
And, we do have a control over commercial, things that are zoned for that area, whether it goes in or not.
Well, I think those are two different examples. I mean, the examples you guys are talking about are examples where political pressure is brought to bear by the populace that says, hey, developer, we don't want that. And then the developer has an economic decision to make, do I want to put up with that political pressure or not? But Justin's point of, well, it's an industrial property or industrially zoned property right now, so therefore you could put a bad industrial project in there. Well, you could put a bad commercial store in a commercial zone. You could put a bad professional office in a professional zone. You could put bad apartment houses in an apartment zones. That's probably true of any zone in any town in any state in the United States that could happen. But the purpose of the zoning concept is to make sure we've got, in my experience has been, we've got an industrial area here, we've got professional and offices and apartments here, we've got certain types of commercial here, certain types of commercial there, rural here, agricultural there, so that it's not a hodgepodge one upon the other. Whether or not something's good or bad within the appropriate zone, well, some people like their steak medium well, some people like it medium rare. I mean, that's beauty in the eye of the beholder, in my opinion.
And I think this gives town staff or whomever a tool to say, this is what you need to provide to us, and it spells it out for them without, hearing it one way from somebody and hearing it another way from somebody else. This actually tells them what they need.
Thank you, Sharon. That was the point I wanted to make, is that, folks say, well, hey, what can I do to get a zone change? We'll say, well, there are lots of different scenarios, but here's one that the select board has agreed is one avenue to get there, is to provide this type of information. So it is a helpful tool for that developer to have as a guide of what the basic items that the select board will be looking for. Not that these are the only things, or that there might not be other things, or there might be an overriding issue that it doesn't have anything to do with this, but this is a nice way to say to folks, hey, yeah, this is.
Gives them a guide, and it might make it easier for them to decide what they want to do.
Okay. Where do we want to go with it? Everybody finished?
I want to make
Okay.
I will concede one thing, maybe where Justin's going, because I don't think this needs to be said. It's, it's kind of a regurgitation of a necessary statement. 3C, the change can be accomplished without unconstitutional spot zoning. Well, spot zoning, we know can't work. What's the necessity of having that line in there? I mean, what we're trying to do is, guys, come to us with your ideas. I don't know if
that can
that
be
line
stated.
advances that concept.
It's just nice to tell folks who are coming in and have, in the middle of a residential area, and say, hey, I want to put, something.
I want to put a dry cleaners in this, right?
And we can say that is spot zoning and that's unconstitutional and it's part of the policy, but, again, it doesn't have, none of this has to be in here.
I gotta tell you, I've had a lot of conversations with people in the past weekend that are on other select boards in other towns and whatnot, and there's a lot of people that aren't as aware of the land use rules and whatnot and the language. I don't think it's a bad thing to have something on there for a conversation, just to have it covered. It doesn't change anything, certainly. I mean, that's a statute. It's like saying, you can drive as fast as you want as long as you don't go more than the speed limit, but, but in reality in zoning, when you're talking about things, sometimes it's more ensuring to the public or people who aren't really, up to speed with the day-to-day zoning language and whatnot.
Vast majority of folks wouldn't know what spot zoning is, so that's true.
There's towns in Vermont that do not have town plans.
Do they?
There are towns in Vermont that don't have zoning, don't have zoning. Okay? And there are developers that are not Vermonters that come into Vermont trying to develop and don't understand, and we don't allow spot zoning. So, I mean, that's, to me, that's a pole vault, that's something that doesn't really ring bell with me. I think that's fine, have it in there in statute, just, again, we're making people aware as they come into town.
Like Jason said, it's policy. We're not rewriting statutes. It's, it's a way to explain that we do have an avenue.
So I'll move that we accept this document with the corrections and additions noted.
Second.
Okay, I got a motion second. Any further discussion? Not all in favor? 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, all against? 1. 6-1, motion passed. Go final. Okay, next is the liquor licenses and tobacco licenses.
Yeah, these are all renewals that we have tonight, so I'll just circulate that for your signatures.
Okay. And then the manager's report.
I didn't have a manager's report available to you, but I do have some information that people in the Park Street Jard site area will certainly be aware of. The Environmental Protection Agency and the Department of Environmental Conservation are in town this week and probably over the next 3 weeks, following up with testing arising from the PCB contamination at the former Jard site where the cap was installed. They have found some of the PCBs are moving off-site, and there have been some contamination in some homes where sump pumps or where wells existed at one time. 2 homes have already had the basements cleaned by the Environmental Protection Agency, but they are moving to meet with all of the neighbors that appear to be impacted, and the combination of the Environmental Protection Agency and the state of Vermont will take care of the problems that they have found that they think have a higher than normal risk. We're discovering that apparently the plume kind of stops at the wetlands just beyond the westerly side of Park Street. For whatever reason, that wetlands is offering an opportunity to filter the material that is moving, and it seems to be stopping there. But as one of the EPA folks we met with today indicated, it's the bony condition of the material beneath the Jard site, beneath the Little League ball field, that allows this material to move so easily because it is so bony, so gravelly, that sediment, PCBs bind to the sediment, and they actually will flow with the groundwater or high waters in the case of floods. So that's just to let you folks know they're in town. If you get any calls, this was an activity that started last late summer and fall, and now they're back to finish the work. And there is a possibility that the jarred site itself, the capped site, may find itself on the national priority list.
On the Superfund list?
Yes.
Okay, we notified the National Guard that they're here and, we've signed an agreement? with
There
them?
is no contamination moving in that direction.
Okay,
So we haven't notified them per se, but we know that the plume is moving generally in a northwesterly direction following the groundwater table.
I just think it's our obligation, if we find it gets in the area that we've signed a memorandum of agreement with, that we notify them.
We
and
will
bring
do
them in
so.
on this.
Just so folks feel comfortable, there's no risk on the surface, on the ground surface, it's in the groundwater.
Yes.
So if you're not drinking it or you have a well, you're not at any risk whatsoever. So I just don't want folks to think that there's this awful contamination, and if they're walking around there, they're gonna have issues. It's in the groundwater, and so it's not on the surface.
And everybody down there is on town water, correct?
That is correct.
Well, okay, everybody might be on town water, but do we know there used to be wells in that area? Do we know, I'm assuming there's still wells in that area?
There are wells, and many of the wells are actually in the basements, which is what
Right.
was done. At EPA's cost, they are sealing those wells.
Okay.
So, I mean, they're taking it, EPA is taking it very seriously when they find sediment in a basement that may have flooded or may have had water in it. If they find any level of PCB in there, they're actually going in and cleaning the basement and waterproofing it, sealing the wells, and actually
Is
improving.
EPA sending a letter to all the property owners out there?
All the
of this?
property owners have been notified, and they have scheduled meetings with all of them who will answer the door and let them in.
Okay. If you listen to this, you don't hear the knock on the door, open the door. Come on, guys, this is serious. They're here to help, but let's make sure we accept their help. Okay, anything else, Stuart?
That's it.
All right, Chris, you have anything?
Well, I'd like to just say that it has been an honor serving on this board for the last 9 years. It's been quite an experience. I'm looking forward to the next chapter. I've got some children's books and things in the plans and in the works, and I'm looking forward to start spending some serious time on that. But I just wanted to thank you guys for the experience. Jason, my arch nemesis, I have to tell you that I've learned a lot.
Arch nemesis?
Everybody knows that. Let's face it. But
Christian, anybody in the world I've agreed with all the time or disagreed with all the time.
I agree.
We found some common grounds on some stuff.
But let me just tell you that, Jason, I've learned a lot from you in the terms, or in the 2 terms that I've served with you, and you've challenged me, which I really appreciate. And just like the rest of the board, Joe, you've been a mentor as far as I'm concerned, and someone that I've looked up to on the board, and also Mr. Hurd. I was 23 when I was elected, and I'd like to congratulate Sharon and Tom Jacobs, but more importantly, I'd like to extend my hand to John McFadden. I was pretty naive when I decided to run 9 years ago and wasn't quite sure what to expect, but I want to give you some advice. The first year is going to be difficult. It's going to be a learning experience. So just listen to your constituents, learn from your fellow board members, and get to know as many people in this circle, the DRB, the Planning Commission, ask them the questions to help you make these decisions, and I wish you the best of luck. So thank you
After
very
that
much.
speech, I think I need to give equal time to Jason.
Well, I'm not going to take it.
That's the first.
Just will say thank you to those people that gave me the opportunity to be here for 6 years. I've enjoyed it. There's a lot of it I'll miss. There's a lot of it won't miss as much. And good luck to everybody who's continuing. John, you're here tonight. Congratulations on being a new board member, and I'm sure Tom Jacobs is watching tonight. So Tom, good luck and congratulations to you as well.
Okay.
Thank you.
Greg?
One quick thing, I noticed in the paper that FEMA had come across with some approvals on some culvert replacement request, have we heard anything new from them on our?
It's funny you ask, I was just talking to Neil about that earlier. Spoke to Tricia Coates today, who's with Congressman Welch's office, and she indicated that she felt that next big decision they're gonna make is about debris, which is what our issue is, so we're hoping within the next couple of weeks that we get the right answer, so we'll see.
Thank you, that's all.
Justin?
Yes, Stuart, earlier in the week I emailed you, and just, I'm not sure if the board got the rest of the information, but I had asked about, for the public also. I'm concerned about this BLS Bennington Walmart payout project to the Citizens for Greater Bennington group that's come about. Can you just state for us again and for the board what the town's involvement in that has been and what planned involvement is going forward?
We had absolutely no involvement in the settlement discussions. The town settled its issues with the developer long before this case went to court. We have been simply a bystander, obviously watching the discussions take place, but we've not participated, nor do we have an idea at this point how this money that Mr. Levi is setting aside will actually be utilized to benefit the downtown. Certainly, Dan and I have had some discussions about things that we might like to ask for that we think would be helpful. But as yet, I don't believe, Dan, that there is any kind of organization ready or process ready to make those applications.
I think we have to be really clear that this is not a town issue. It's the BNRC folks and Citizens for Greater Bennington. They're going to be controlling this process with Mr. Levy or whoever he designates for BLS Bennington. The town really has no role to play in it except for perhaps to request that the funds be used in a certain way. We may not even do that. It's really not. It's going to be completely within the control of an organization that doesn't have any direct connection with the town of Bennington.
Okay.
We did not have party status,
We did have party status.
but we did not accept it. I mean, we were offered it, we're entitled to it, but we did not go forward to be an active party.
We have party status,
Right.
but we did not participate
Right.
actively in the Act 250 commission hearings because we had already settled all of our concerns long before that. So this is strictly an issue between BNRC, Citizens for Greater Bennington, and BLS, Bennington the developer.
And what I understand, it was an agreement between those parties who were part of this appeal. Mr. Levy was in on it, he agreed to.
Yes, my understanding is that it was negotiated. Mr. Levy and BNRC and Citizens Group sat down and negotiated this deal with the town.
That's the way I understand it.
And I just asked because I'm hesitant for the town to get involved in it in any way or even potentially accept any funds.
Well, wait a minute.
Hey, well, hold on,
When will
Joe.
we have to, Jason,
Can I finish it up?
yeah, go ahead.
My issue with it is I see it as a deterrent to business to come to Bennington. I see it as a $200,000 payout for somebody to have the right to develop their own property. I don't think that sends a good message to potential developers or people who potentially want to bring business to this community. So for us to sit there and condone it, I think is a bad message for this select board to send to anybody who wants to do business in Bennington, regardless as to whether you're Walmart or you're the store down the street.
If money is given for the benefit of town, whether it's downtown or Northside Drive, isn't it pass-through money? Aren't we the ones that's going to have to control where that money goes?
No,
In this case, it does not go.
it doesn't come through us at all.
So this group out there, the groups out there, to include Mr. Levy, they're the ones that's going to decide what happens?
Yes.
Yes.
So what approval will we have? What happens if it doesn't fit into our plan?
It's their money, they can do what they want with it.
Can it be used,
Expenditure.
can it be used as leverage for grants?
If that's how they choose to use it, yes.
So if, say, John Shanahan or whoever wanted to write a grant for a downtown, for some project, if $50,000 is a contribution that could potentially be used.
But it would be up to the folks who control that money whether or not that's how they want to use it. I mean, I think it's really important. This is not a Bennington issue. This is an Act 250 decision. It had nothing to do with the unique circumstance of the laws in Bennington. It's a state land use board that just made this decision, and folks that were a party to to that who wanted to participate in this, made this private settlement that had nothing to do with the town of Bennington.
I have no problem with the money. Where I have a problem with, though, is, and I'll get with Justin on this thing. All right, the group said, let's say the group wants to lay trolley tracks down Main Street. We don't think it's smart to do. They can go ahead and do that, or they got to go through the permitting process and do it.
They can't do that. I mean, they can't just come onto our property.
Right. We own that right away.
So, I mean, there's limits to what they can recommend.
It has to be a legal expenditure.
Okay.
It's not prohibited.
So the smart thing for the groups to do is to come to the town and ask for a wish list of kind of things, and they can select or pick or choose how they want to spend that money?
That, or they can just develop their own process. I mean, they're a private entity that the town has no control over. It's like any other organization that maybe has funding available for folks. You know, they can apply to them and ask for them to get funding.
Well, they're gonna have to ask somebody to accept the money, because I don't think they can take it themselves. They're not a registered 501c3. What's the group? The Citizens for Greater Bennington, right? I mean,
I don't think they're not gonna take any money. They may be,
Right.
I expect that their organization will be involved in directing where the money goes.
yeah. I would just like to see the town have no involvement in it whatsoever. Yeah, it's a $200,000 alleged windfall at the sake of over $1 million in tax revenue over the last 8 years that this project's been held up, so, to me, it's just a joke. But
Okay. Everybody clear?
If I can, from what I understand, the numbers in the settlement came from a study that Walmart provided regarding the economic impact of a superstore on an adjacent downtown, and that's where the settlement came out.
Do you know where that study can be found?
I do not, but I could probably find that.
Well, I can recall the number that they projected, that it would be a net negative impact of 15% on local businesses in Bennington with a new super Walmart. And that's significant.
It's funny.
Because every business lives on percentages in the margin.
And I just think that $200,000 is not
They got
enough.
off cheap.
Well, no, I think, I want to see the study. I mean, we can't do anything, but I
Could've
just,
had $1 million
for
if
my
you
own,
let it
for
go
my own
8 years
information,
ago.
I'd like to see the study if we find out where it was, and, you know, if it's out, I'm sure it is out there. I know they're doing it all over.
Probably, I mean, if it's a study that Walmart did, it was probably submitted to the Act 250 as part of the Act 250 application, because they were required to do a study, so it's
Can we get a hold
probably.
of that, Dan? Can we get a hold of that?
Yeah, that study's several years old, but we can certainly
Yeah.
pull that up.
I'd like to read it.
That was distributed quite some time ago. And as Greg says, it was a study paid for by Walmart and actually the citizens group together, and it came up with those findings of the negative impact. You know, in Act 250 parlance, it's undue adverse, and that was kind of where the old, where everything, where it wasn't clear whether that was undue or not, but it definitely was a negative impact.
Okay,
whether it was undue or not.
all right. Anything else?
No, that's it.
Jim?
Yes, sir. I wanted to start a conversation. I don't really expect to take any action, but it's, while I was running, you know, I talked about economic development, and soon after I got elected, I realized, you know, it's not a simple answer. There are many things in motion in town that are trying to make us more economically viable. And in the research that I did, I looked at other municipalities, states, cities, who tried to affect economic development, and what they did was they did it through a livable wage. It's been done in cities all over the country, and in some cases it was a blanket livable wage, and in smaller places like Bennington, it was a livable wage that was applied only to big box retailers. Now currently, the minimum wage, I think, is about approximately $8.50.
$9.45, I think it is.
It went up? Okay.
I think, yeah.
All right.
I think
Well, I
it's
was working
$9.45 this year.
from a figure that I got at several months ago, and at $8.50 an hour, it's gross wages of $17,680 that somebody working full-time would get in town here. Now, after, let's say, rent is extracted at $700 a month for not a great apartment, you're left with approximately $9,280 to pay insurance, buy food, feed your kids. With a proposed $12 an hour livable wage that would be applied, again, only to big box stores in Bennington, that would bring gross wages up to $24,960. an increase of $7,280 a year. And for a partnered or married couple, that's gross wages of $50,000, and that's pretty good money for a family of two in Bennington. Now, in addition to that, at $12 an hour, it would be an increase of gross wages in Bennington of $2 million, $184,000 that would go into our local economy.
Assuming the jobs would stay here.
Well, it would attract them. Now, currently, because the minimum wage workers cannot reasonably afford to conduct their lives, they have to go for subsidies. That means WIC, food stamps, Medicaid. And currently, with Walmart alone, when someone is hired at Walmart, they're given those federal forms to apply for assistance. Walmart, and I'm not picking on Walmart, but I'm just going to, they are the prime example, is the largest retailer in American history, the most profitable at $400 million a year in gross sales and $200 billion in profits. We currently subsidize Walmart workers to the tune of $1.8 billion a year. Now, some people would see the imposition of a living wage of $12 an hour as hostile to business, but I want to provide an historic example in the form of Henry Ford. During the early 20s, Ford noticed that his sales, which had been skyrocketing, started to slow down and then stagnate. And Ford, being the genius that he was, decided to do two things. One was to lower the price of his automobiles and to increase wages. Now, his competitors and his fellow auto parts manufacturers railed at this idea. They said it would destroy their business, when just the opposite is true. What it did is historically, and it's arguable, but many historians have said that Ford effectively created the middle class in this country because there was a multiplier effect. When Ford was able to pay more to his workers, guess what? They spent that money, and they spent it on cars. And consequently, more car parts needed to be produced, and more people needed to be hired to produce those car parts. So the same would be true here in Bennington. The multiplier effect for a family of, or two, a working couple with $50,000 with an extra $15,000 in their pocket, they're going to feel like Rockefeller, and they're going to spend that money locally. That's what happens historically. Now, one of the other things that I want to address that goes to the heart of this with a livable wage is clearly we're addressing poverty. Now, we all recall not too long ago the huge drug bust in Bennington. There's clearly a correlation between poverty, drug use, alcohol abuse, domestic abuse. This is one way that we could directly address it in our town. That's it.
Okay, I guess my question is we don't have the authority, I don't believe, and I guess the legislative process isn't to establish the minimum wages.
I'm not sure. It's been done. I know that for a fact that it's been adopted through ordinances in other municipalities. Whether or not we can do that or not, what I'd like to ask you to do is to direct Rob Wilmington to look into this to see if it's possible through local ordinances.
Preliminarily, we have talked with the league, looked to the charter, and looked at land use regulations, which seem to be the only two opportunities. My fear is that Vermont is not a home rule state.
That's right.
All of our authority flows from the legislature, from the state. So my thinking is if the state has set the minimum wage at $9.45 an hour for a community to attempt to adopt a higher minimum wage or a livable wage, as Jim has described it, might not be possible. Now, I just heard yesterday that Burlington is attempting to do something along those lines, and I think they're approaching it through their charter. Now, I don't know whether or not the legislature has granted approval for that change in the charter or not, But those are the only two options that we have, would be for a select board to adopt an ordinance, and I don't believe our charter gives you that authority at this point to set a minimum wage in Bennington.
The last time that Dr. Mullins was here, and we're going to meet with him again on the 28th, I brought that question up, and I recall his assistant to the side when I brought it up. She said that, if my recollection serves me, that it was possible, and these were experts. However, I think Rob will be able to answer that question more effectively.
Yeah, I think Rob's the one that's going to have to defend the action should we attempt to take it, so.
But I'd also contact some of our legislators also, because if Burlington's doing it now, I think Representative Mook is on the committee that looks at those charter changes, those actions. We might want to just give them a call and just see what's going on up there right now. And then, of course, have Rob follow through.
Jason has a comment.
Okay, Jason?
I just want to be on the record saying, I guess as my final act as a select board member, let it be on the record that I think that might be, no offense, Jim, that is among maybe the worst idea I've ever heard in 6 years on this select board. I don't think it supports economic development. I think it supports poverty. The highest, there are some municipalities, and whether it's legal in Vermont or not, I suspect Stu is right. It has to be done through a charter change. In the United States of America, Santa Fe, New Mexico has the highest minimum wage. Do you know what that is?
There, no.
Did you, $10.29. San Francisco's around $10. Both places with much higher standards of living than Bennington, Vermont. I never want to be part of a municipal government, and I hope this municipal government never supports segregating wage. I don't think it's legal, by the way, to have a wage scale for one employer over here different from another employer over there. I think that probably violates equal protection to the extent that corporations are due equal protection under the laws. How are you going to employ kids that make minimum wage, that are teenagers? How are you, let me finish. How are you going to employ senior citizens that use that money to augment their income? How, do you think for a minute a developer is going to look at Bennington, Vermont, when they have a minimum wage that is, I used $8.60 as the minimum wage. I think that's what it was before it got indexed up a couple years ago. But you would make Bennington's minimum wage off of $8.60 with your proposal 40% higher than the rest of the state of Vermont. That doesn't promote economic development. That promotes leaving Bennington. That's just,
Well, historically,
this board going forward takes no part of that.
Jason, in the research that I've done, first of all, let me back up. I should have included that, teenagers would not, it would be 18 years and above that would get the $12 an hour. But in the research that I've done.
That's age discrimination.
Well.
Which I know is not allowed under the Constitution of the United States.
As I said earlier, this is the start of a conversation that I hope that will continue. Nevertheless, it has been done around the country, and it has not stymied businesses coming into areas. If, as a retailer or any business, if you see that the money is there to be made, you come.
I'll just say this, when last time the minimum wage was raised in Vermont, I was on the legislature, I voted against it. And it wasn't because of the dollar amount that the bill called for, it was the kicker that they added on that each year that it had to increase. I'll tell you the effect that had in the state of Vermont. The teenagers no longer got the jobs because the employers they knew that was, that the money was going to go out. So there were fewer jobs, startup jobs for these young people to get started. The other effect I know, because I was running a business at that time, is not every business makes enough profit to give everybody a raise every year. And you've got employees in a business that's been there 25, 30 years. You have to look at them in the eye, and they've been great employees, says you can't get a raise because I don't have the money. But, oh, by the way, this person who's in a startup, I have to kick him up 3% because that's what the kicker is this year. That has a morale issue to your workforce. And that's exactly what happened here in Bennington when that happened. And I know the businesses it happened to when it was here. So, but we've got the discussion up there. I know that the livable wage thing is an active thing up in Montpelier. There's a lobby group up there that's working on it every year. They're up there doing it, and I know the legislature is working on it. But I'd like to know whether or not the city of Burlington is actually going through this thing. I'd be surprised if they did. They've made some other fiasco things up there lately that they're a couple $1 billion in a hole over, such as a communication system that they couldn't afford, and they're figuring out how to pay for
I
it.
think on the face, proposing a quote-unquote livable wage in the state of Vermont, when employers have foisted upon them all sorts of burdens to begin with in the state of Vermont, a number that is, in gross terms, 17% higher than any other quote-unquote livable wage in the nation out of all 50 states, just, need I say more? I mean,
Yeah.
what more can you say, Joe?
Well, I'll say one more thing. I'm on a panel Wednesday. We're going to talk about some of these things, panel made up from people around here. And one of the things I intend to bring up, and I'll just give you all a preview, is that Vermont still has a reputation of being anti-business, and the doors are not open to business. And no matter what we have tried to do, it hasn't worked. And when we do things like, I think what we're proposing right here, that sends a signal, because it'll make newspapers all over the place see it. And it's not going to help us lose that reputation of that our doors are closed to businesses coming up here. It's tough enough, as we know, when we look at our local businesses that have been here a while, who can't make it. Startups aren't going to come up here and help us.
Look at the permitting issues, you look at the environmental issues, you look at, relative to the nation, a relatively high minimum wage already. I'm not saying people making minimum wage have it easy. They
Nope.
don't. People making $12 an hour probably don't have it easy. But this kills business, this type of.
Well,
So this is the wrong message, in my opinion.
Let me say again that historically that quite the contrary is true. It's actually boosted business because people have more money to spend, and they spend it locally. They spend it on other businesses that otherwise that money wouldn't be there, and they spend it.
Well, of course, those jobs have to exist for the money to be paid. I mean, let's make it $50 an hour for a minimum wage.
Fine.
Well, I think
It's
we,
just, I mean,
Yeah.
Jim, I just think it's, I'm sorry.
It's not, this figure, it's not outrageous, but, you've got to balance a livable wage against the amount of money that we pay in subsidies. I mean, there's no free ride. When you have low wages, those people have to go for assistance. And who's paying that? Everybody out there who pays taxes, you and everybody else at this board. So there's some trade-off. At least we could responsibly, both as United States citizens and Vermont citizens, lessen the burden that we're all carrying because we have to provide, on a humane level, the basic necessities for these people. Let's lighten that burden for all of us and lift these people out of poverty.
okay, we've had discussion. We're not in a position where we can act on it, so I'm going to cut off this debate. I just say it's going to open up more debate. You talked about buying local. If that was the way people do it right now, we wouldn't have a big marketing campaign to buy local, because we're trying to encourage people to buy here, and they're still driving to capital city to buy their cars and things of that sort.
Joe, I do want to say just one more
Well,
thing.
go ahead. No, cut me
I
off.
want to thank Chris and Jason for their service. And Jason, I just want to say that both linguistically and in content, it's been a pleasure to listen to you. And I'm glad
Until
that,
tonight.
and I'm glad that you're going to go out with the worst idea you've ever heard.
Jim, there's an expression, sometimes you save the best for last, and I will say, I think you took the cake tonight.
Well, thank you very much.
Sharon, do you have anything?
Very much.
Stu, do we need to act on the minutes of the town meeting? Do we have to?
No, the moderator has approved them.
Okay.
There are two avenues of approval. One, the moderator, who was the interim moderator, Mr. Corcoran, has approved them.
Okay. Then I don't have anything. You're going to,
I'm just going to wrap up by thanking both Jason and Chris. I think our audience, television audience, and those few out here see why it's important to have diverse opinions on your board. It gets debate out there. And both Jason and Chris, you've been active participants in the board. I'm speaking as a member, not the chair, because I wasn't always the chair when you guys got on here, that you always, in my opinion, did your homework before you got here. And the information you provided did nothing but help us serve the people that elected us here. So good luck to both of you, and you pursue. Both of you are still young. I expect when you get my age, we might see you back up here, or younger than my age, get you back up here in other positions. So thanks a lot. You did great things.
Thank you, sir.
And We have no need to go into executive session, so I'll take and entertain a motion to adjourn.
Second?
Second, any discussion? All in favor? And that is unanimous.